on my attention. My countrymen, they love their fiction. Words upon now, it's made with good intentions.
Welcome to 1 or 200. We're back. 2026. It's an election year. November 7th is apparently when it's going to happen, unless somehow everything falls apart before then. Wow. Welcome to our audience. Sorry we've been gone for so long, like 2 whole weeks. But significantly longer that we haven't done a current events episode. Wow. It didn't slow down. We're into the new year with a vengeance. It is the 31st of January today when we're recording. This is going to drop hopefully on the 1st of February. I'm joined by my co-hosts. Stephanie, how are you doing?
Kia ora tātou. Well, I woke up and the first thing I saw on Blue Sky was that Catherine O'Hara has passed away. So I'm more devastated than I already was with it being election year.
Love finding out horrible news live on the podcast.
Sorry.
Hey, no, look, I had to find out somehow. And we've also got Dash, Pmax. How you doing?
Um, school's just started up, so that's a whole thing. But personally good.
Great. We've got so much energy coming
It's
to us
still
from
January. We're allowed to not
teacher
have
corner.
energy.
There's heaps to talk about, obviously. We're going to try and get to some of it. If you are following our newsletter as well, that should have dropped onto the website this morning. I don't know if it did or not. I had it all set up, ready to be published. Wow, it did.
By the
Fantastic.
time they're listening, it will have dropped.
It did. It dropped this morning. Hopefully dropping every Saturday morning going forward. It's just a quick roundup of all the more progressive leaning news and articles and stuff, which is interesting. So you don't have to go trawling through the Herald or Stuff or RNZ or wherever else the fuck people are writing these days. Wading through the trash to find that one good journalist or report or story. Bunch of good op-eds and stuff in there as well. Give it a look, see how you feel about it. We're also trying to get a gig guide running for protests, activism, petitions, and things like that. So you can check it, and hopefully we start to have a really good idea about all the activations that are happening into the future. So we knew there was a bit of a gap for what can I do? Like where am I going to go to protest this thing? And you're going to have people having to run around Instagram, run around Blue Sky, or even Twitter still to try and find out how to show their support for something. We want to try and put it all in one place. So you should be able to start finding that on our newsletter, Common Sense, on the 1 or 200 website. But let's kick into current events. One of the big horrible things already happening in January has been I wouldn't even call it an acceleration, but the early kick into doing some more terrible education policy. Dash, do you want to go through a bit of the stuff that's been happening? I think one of the things that has been maybe interesting, I guess, is that some of the stories that we've been following since 2023, which have been investigated and written about by independent bloggers, investigators, whatever you want to call them, journalists, have started to get into the mainstream media as they've become a bit too egregious. And they often describe outright corruption from cabinet ministers in ways that are going to be harmful to children. We've called this government, their policy platform, a war on kids, with a lot of the stuff they've been doing, particularly in schools and, all the way from ECE up to high school. Dash, like, what is happening here?
Well, it's sort of nothing new. The government's been pretty open from day one what their education plan was. It's more the details have been filtering down through. And as the reality of a lot of those decisions and the sort of the legislative and bureaucratic processes to bring those decisions to fruition come through, that's now media is finally picking up and being like, oh, this is actually a little bit fucked. One of the big ones recently, which you sort of referenced, was as I'm getting the name of it, the Parliament's Education and Workforce Select Committee on the Government's Education and Training System Reform Amendment Bill. That's a bloody mouthful. Essentially, the government's trying to take more executive control over uh, the teaching profession. So instead of having teachers and teaching educators in charge of defining what makes a good teacher, what makes a good teacher training program, the government wants to take control of that. And something that did come out in the news this week, which is not news to anyone who's been paying attention to education, we've discussed it in the past, is that there's basically no professionalism in the Ministry of Education when it comes to curriculum development. Um, One of the people brought into the select committee was a former curriculum writer at the Ministry of Education, and essentially their job was just checking with the minister, who would then check with their mates what was okay, what wasn't okay. We had a big discussion about the updated Year 10, Year 9 curriculum, junior curriculum last year, and you can sort of see the results of that ideological bent there with a move away from te tiriti, a move away from acknowledging New Zealand's actual history and trying to construct this right-leaning, pro-capitalism, miserable curriculum in its place. And then there's uh, increasing noises towards more charterization. David Seymour seems to be implying that he's going to be more active in trying to get public schools to charterize. This year, something to keep an eye on is attendance and schools going into statutory, I think it's statutory management, um, because that's sort of the mechanism by which the government will forcibly charterize public schools. And that's what will make it permanent, is being able to get a critical mass of public schools charterized, and then it will be like academies in the UK, where it's just a part of the education landscape. You can't get rid of it.
Is it like
Um,
the school's doing so badly, we need to sweep in here with
yep.
government reforms and take over and give it to someone who knows what they're doing? It was going to be the narrative, right?
Yes. And something that the government's been building up over the past few years is setting up precedents, changing the way things are reported to basically be able to select any school they want and say this school isn't performing. Um, so to give you an example of one of the metrics that schools are dealing with at the moment, schools are expected to have, I think the specific number is 80% of students in, oh no, students are expected to have regular attendance, and I think the expectation is at least 90% of the student body. The definition of regular attendance is over 90% of days attended, which means that there's very little leeway for um, holidays, cultural, um, oh, brain is not working. Holidays, cultural practices, tangi is a big one, because that gets put down in most schools as an unjustified attendance. Um, and also sort of extended sicknesses, which are not always put down as justified. And of course, we had the minister, was it last year or the year before, saying that too many parents are taking their kids out for sick. It's also mental health. If students are missing days because of mental health, then that's sort of just put down as a non-attendance. The reasons for the non-attendance are not really interrogated. So I would not be surprised if later in the year we see more punitive measures towards schools based on attendance. There's also achievement, but that's still a bit messy because the government hasn't quite figured out how they're going to implement their higher level assessment regime that's replacing NCA, and they haven't really told us
And
either.
it's, I guess, really hard to claim that schools aren't achieving when they want to boost their policy as having been successful, right? Where they changed all the guidelines and said, oh, we're meeting our guidelines at higher levels now. I think Luxon came out in his first speech of the year to say, oh, the changes we made to education are giving like really good results. So if I turn around and say like, oh, actually they're not, these schools aren't achieving, then
Yeah,
that undermines the what are they calling it? Building back the basics
yeah.
platform.
Which is why I think they will focus on attendance and they will focus on NCEA achievement because that's still the unreworked
Yeah.
curriculum. But also focus on schools in disadvantaged areas.
Yeah, I was going to say this, especially the attendance metric, it almost seems like it's created to target lower decile schools where you're more likely to have students who are moving around a lot, who are maybe having to work, um, who might face illness at greater rates, rather than, you know, your decile 7 to 10s.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, technically they don't use decile anymore, but I guess it's a good shorthand because they've just replaced it with something it's a better system, but it's functionally the same thing.
Mm.
It's always going to be a difficult thing under the Tomorrow Schools framework. Shot Christopher Hipkins for doing nothing about that. Um, that you're going to have rich schools and poor schools. Um, and I guess if I can get to like a wider problem with education in New Zealand, it is that sort of material divide between families that is causing a lot of the inequities in education. The number one, and funnily enough, this is something that's even corroborated by the New Zealand Initiative. Their research shows this. The number one determinant of a student's success is the stability and income of the family home. You can control for all other factors, and it literally nothing else can beat the outsized impact that stability and income of the family home has. Um,
Sounds like we need to charterize family homes as well, mate.
yeah, something like that. Um, well, don't get me started on just building more homes or something. Like we'll get the YIMBYs all over us. Um, but yeah, and so a lot of this education policy, a lot of this like there was even talk last year. I don't actually have the specific article up, but there was talk last year of more punitive measures for schools and teachers who are not fulfilling their obligations. Punitive measures don't work in education because, like, at the end of the day, you're punishing students for not learning when most of a student's learning is outside of their control. Um, And yeah, that's sort of the insidious thing about that talk of punitive measures, that talk of forced charterization in the case of schools that are not succeeding, is the research shows the reason that schools and education facilities don't succeed is obviously there are exceptions to the rule, but by and large, it's to do with poverty. It's a poverty problem. And to sort of blame people who are not meeting expectations due to poverty on a failure of the schools that serve those communities or those communities themselves um, is not good.
Just quickly on the
Mm.
charterization, in terms of how they're likely to try and go about this. They took a swing at the end of last year, right? I think it was Carlton Boys,
Yeah, they
and it was a monumental failure. Like how do they? You like it's the kind of thing where the whole thing should have fallen over at that point. Media should have just like run act out of town, because the group that was trying to push the charterization had ACT Party MPs on their website. It was run by like a convicted criminal. Was the sponsor. The organization barely existed. Um, but rather than doing that, the media I think gave like 3 to 4 days of like
neutral
boosterism.
coverage.
No, well, I would say above neutral coverage, right? Talking about how like we need to do good for sports for these kids.
It's
and
run by
That's what
etc.
I
former
was.
students.
That's what I was going to jump in and say, Carl. I think with the Kelston Boys High thing, and I'm conscious that this is a very Pākehā panel for the episode, but the thing that kept striking me as someone who has family members who went to Kelston Boys, and a friend who's taught at Kelston Boys, is that one of the reasons I think the narrative worked so well for Kelston Boys is that a lot of the media are very racist. And there is definitely this
Hmm.
view of, oh, well, New Lynn, it's a working class, predominantly Maori Pacifica household. Effectively, these are people who are never going to succeed unless they become all black. So actually, it's good if we just focus the education of this entire population towards will they be all blacks one day so Rugby NZ can make more money. And no one ever kind of could look past that to see, as you say, the really obvious issues, the really obvious lack of integrity, of credibility. It was so obviously just a political play, but everyone fell down the rabbit hole. And I would love people to just reflect on why they found it so natural in a way that you would never say, maybe King's College should be charterized into a sports academy.
Maybe. Fingers crossed. I think
Yeah,
and like this is one of the crazy things, right? Is I think I personally scooped the fact that the
the
Academy wasn't
website.
real. Like because I went and looked at the fucking website. Like I was like, something's not right here. Let's look at the website. Oh, wait, what? Like it's got Lorem Ipsum for most of the text.
Yeah.
Sorry to pull us off topic, but I do genuinely want to put a pin in. This is going to be my one of 200 touching the lathe, cursed monkey's paw. Checking the website is going to be a theme of this election year because, yeah, who are the trusts trying to take over Kelston Boys High? Have you checked the website? Obviously a joke. Who is this cybersecurity agency
Yeah,
that claimed they've found the
yesterday.
person who hacked Manage My Health? Hey, Radio New Zealand, check the website. It's clearly a joke. That AI generated summer reading recommendations list that everyone lost their minds about because it was from the World Literacy Foundation and everyone assumed that meant it was a real group. Nah, guys, it's just clearly a shell trying to get donations. Maybe they give some books to schools, but this is not like a United Nations internationally accredited organization. It's just some guys putting out press releases. And if you just look at their websites, you will see very quickly that they are not credible and they are not authoritative, and then maybe don't republish their stuff uncritically.
This is the thing is that republishing, like, I'm not paid to do this, right? Journalists are far out.
I could
Um,
get
Yeah.
us an article for the One of 200 website tomorrow by walking down to my local amazing books and post store and saying, "Hey guys, what are the 10 books people are buying for their summer reading this year?" And I could do that in 15 minutes. And apparently that is too much effort for our media institution to just get a freaking new grad and say, hey, go pound some pavement and do some real reporting on local issues. And
yeah,
sorry,
or
we're
like
way
pound
off
the
topic, but
keyboard, right?
check the websites, people.
Yeah. I think it's. I'll quickly comment on this before going back, but do we think that because obviously there are people who organically do journalism, and there are so many young teenagers every year who are like, I can't wait to go to university and become a journalist and tell the truth and so forth. To what extent do we think becoming a professional journalist is just cool, that all that's going out the window? I'm just sticking to the script now. Um,
The changes to like BCom and etc., like from about 10 to 15 years ago, that created the current crop of, I guess, gallery and I guess what you barely call beat reporters these days is about like when the turn started to happen.
yeah.
And that's alongside some like what I'd call good structures around getting people into newsrooms when they're still students.
Mm,
The problem is that the way that media is set up in this country is it's completely captured, and it has been for decades.
Mm.
But like to an extent, and that's accelerated. And so when you put young impressionable students into those environments, they're crafted in a particular image.
Mm.
mm,
That's it.
It's a lot of it is the power of institutional inertia. And again, I'm going to jump us off topic just because it's something I have heard a lot regarding the Department of Corrections, who are currently doing a massive recruitment drive because no one
It's so
actually wants to
cringe.
be a prison officer. It's very, very cringe. But one of the things is they do get a lot of people who go in and think, I want to serve my community. I
Yeah.
want to be one of the good ones. I want to treat these people with compassion and understanding and maintain a secure correctional facility, but also, not just go straight to violence and
Not
punishment.
run a Fight
But as
Club.
soon as they get in there, what is the culture of that institution? What is the culture of their team leaders and their managers and their managers' managers? And idealism, particularly when you are the youngest or the most junior or the newest, is so hard to maintain against a just completely opaque wall of no, this is how things are, this is how you have to do it, you'll learn. And then, yeah, you get caught
Mm.
up in a couple of fights driven by that culture, and suddenly you're going, oh, yeah, no, this is the only way to be. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, exactly the same thing is happening in a huge number of institutions, not just journalism, not just corrections.
Agreed. And I think it's a New Zealand culture thing. And maybe, people are like, oh, it kind of happens like this everywhere. But one of the main ways that tall poppy kind of stuff shows up here is around idealism, right? Like, no, no, nothing can ever be better. As a really institutionally developed, I'd say almost ideology, in the New Zealand framework in particular. It's pretty evil. Back to education, quickly. So they completely flopped trying to do their first precedent-setting charterization, like forced charterization. Like the principal and etc. came out and were like, we've never like be this group hasn't like come to talk to us at all. They're trying to like just come in over the top and force it. Clearly, they were trying to do it in concert with the associate minister and the ACT Party. How do they try and stand something up now? Dash, like,
Well,
given they've fucked it so badly.
because David Seymour didn't full commit to Kelston. He was just sort of like, oh, this is a decision for the board, blah, blah, blah. Because I think he had the political instincts to be like, okay, we'll push this out, we'll see what the reaction is, and then I'll commit if there's like enough of a positive vibe. Obviously, people fucking hated it. Um, which is why I think the strategy is going to shift this year, especially because they've only got so many months to go before they potentially lose the ability to do this. Um, I suspect they're going to try and get the process going on schools that are just like, because of reasons largely outside of those schools' control, or a couple of key cases where management have put the school in the shitter. They're going to try and forcibly charterize those schools. I think the thing that's causing them issues is there's no private organization in New Zealand that can competently run a large school. Um, they've got a lot of extremely small charter schools operating. I mean, I don't know how big the largest is, but most of these charter schools have roles in the 20s. The only ones that are slightly larger seem to be running better are the ones run by iwi. Um, so yeah, it's sort of I think that's their big roadblock. But I do think that they just want to get one done. Doesn't really matter who's in charge of it. It doesn't matter if it's Banger's Trust or anything like that. Because I guess the aim would be to make it too big to fail, to build it up to a point where Labour can't do what they did last time, where they were just like, cool, this sucks, gone. Um,
Odds
because
on that the principal of Auckland Grammar just takes grammar over into charterization, given he's such
well,
a mate with all these freaks.
yeah, but that's like an interesting case because yeah, obviously Auckland Grammar is a dark wellspring for a lot of the issues in um, education this term. Um, and there's other sort of like prestige schools in a similar position to Auckland Grammar who might do it. Those, yeah, I think it needs more than just a few of those prestige schools. It needs to be across the community for it to stick. Because if it's just like, Auckland Grammar and a couple of other those large schools that actually do it, because Auckland Grammar hasn't actually done it, have they?
Mm.
No.
No, no, no.
They've
That's what I'm
talked about
wondering.
it, but they haven't actually gone ahead with it. Would be, we get to a new government and then they're like, okay, you silly buggers, come on, you're coming back in. The goal is to sort of, well, the goal would be to slash and burn the infrastructure to a point where it's more expensive to bring the schools back into the fold than it is to just sort of let things roll along. And, schools like Auckland Grammar have the resourcing, the staffing, blah, 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 the student numbers, consistent student numbers to be able to manage that transition. If it's a school that's already falling apart at the seams because of consistent underfunding, et cetera, and you've passed it on to a private trust that's running the school under some weird system, especially one because, like, okay, let's quickly talk some logistics, and then I'll stop yapping for a bit. If Auckland Grammar transitions, they are not going to hire random people off the street to staff their classrooms. They're still going to be hiring trained professional teachers. So if you want to flip it back from a charter school to a public school, the
Mhm.
cost is going to be much less because you're basically just flipping the switch. For example, in the Kelston example, let's say Kelston does get charterized, they are going to very quickly, well, a lot of teachers with self-respect are going to leave, and they're not going to be hiring teachers. They were very public about the fact they're like, oh, we're going to hire young people in the community to teach our kids, which I'm sure wouldn't have led to any controversies whatsoever, having unprofessional teenagers teaching teenagers. Um, And then suddenly if you have 10 schools, I mean, David Seymour was talking about 50 schools. Let's say you have 40 schools like that across the country that have switched to a charter system. The teachers who work there have gone overseas or gone elsewhere. And suddenly you have to hire like 400 teachers to meet minimum staffing levels across these schools. That's probably a ridiculous number. Like, let's say 300 for 40 schools. That's suddenly like, oh, we can't do that. We have to let these charter schools continue to operate as they have. Now, thankfully, David Seymour hasn't been very successful in this. I think it's one of the things why it's quite important to get these motherfuckers out this year because another 3 years, who fucking knows where it's going to go. But that's sort of my
Yeah.
Cassandra prognostication of what the strategic goal
I
is.
think the other thing to keep in mind is that there is a chance that it just ends up being a corruption vector, right? Like, hey, here are my mates who are making a school. Let's give them $20 million. If it's
Well,
$1 million per student, and you've just basically you're
what is
just using it as
Ultimate
a pipeline.
Academy?
Yeah, no, exactly, right? It's not about even they give it up because they can't make it stick because they have no proper strategic thinking or idea how to make a policy or structure that actually functions. And so they're just like, hey, we've got a whole bunch of money available for charterization. Let's just give some cash outs to some mates who will then use that to, in the case of something like Ultim, train a whole bunch of people to be fascists.
Well,
Um,
like 14.
And get their hands on some sweet, sweet public land.
And that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a capital transfer. It's just another pipeline for the capital transfer. And we're seeing that like extensively across all aspects of government at the moment. And that brings us to the next big topic, climate. Um,
Shit, is something happening to the climate, Kyle?
well, something's happening at the moment, but I know by the end of this episode we're going to have fixed it, whatever it is.
Uh-huh. I mean, it can't be that hard.
It's been really frustrating, irritating, just kind of pathetic to see the way in which media have allowed people like Nicola Willis and other members of the government to make the claims around the opposition parties politicizing the absolute tragedy. I was going to say down south, but I'm being an Aucklander when I do that.
Hmm.
Um, at the Mount, right? At Mount Maunganui. I I cannot. No, I can believe it. I can believe it. The media this year and like since 2023 has been getting progressively worse. Um, this is, as far as we can tell, is very clearly a case where warnings have been ignored, where there are clear impacts of uh, climate change having caused it. Um, more things like this are going to happen. uh, the removal of mitigation and response funding is a serious issue related to this tragedy. If it is not politicizing it, like, and even if we're going to use those terms, it is already political. Like, we can't politicize it. People fucking died.
It's
It's,
real. It can't be
Hmm.
politicizing something to point out facts.
and they've just been allowed to like release this PR from the government, like saying, "Oh, blah blah blah. We just have to focus on the tragedy. Let's hand out some fucking KFC." Like, if anyone's politicizing in the kind of derogatory sense, it's Christopher Luxon turning up like what, a day late to go
Yeah.
and get photo ops with his hand on people's shoulders and handing out like product placement.
It was like one step away from the Trump throwing paper towels um, after the hurricane. Sorry, just quickly, it's absolutely ridiculous that he was allowed to say, I got it down here as fast as I can, because he was posting photo ops in like schools and shit.
It was part of posting photoshops at the bar, having pints with people.
Clearly just scheduled stuff, and they probably had their social media person on unpaid leave. The social media person is probably an unpaid intern who was looking for a new flat because it's their last year of university. The thing that got me, and Stephanie's putting on the comms hat now, is just it's not actually difficult to show basic leadership in times of disaster. You can get there the day of with your high vis, but if you can't for some reason, then what you do is you call your minister and your heads of civil defense and you go, would it be helpful for me to be down there? They're probably going to say, no, please take your gaggle of journalists and go away. We are still trying to, find people and clear roads. And then you go to the media and say, look, I've talked to my people and they agree that it's not the right time for me to be down there. But as soon as I can make a useful contribution, I'll be there. And then you go back to, quote, working from home, unquote. He's like the anti-Jacinda Ardern in this case, because I don't think anyone needed to tell Jacinda Ardern how to respond to these kinds of things. Not just because she was very good at crisis response, but also because it's really easy. It's just, what is the thing a basic human being would do in this situation?
There's your fucking problem with Luxon.
There is the problem with Luxon. He has no instinct for this. He doesn't care. It's so egregious in terms of basic political management, and my standards for him are already, in the basement. But I'm almost like, does he know? Does he know he's losing? And he knows he's probably going to get rolled before the election because they're going to try to pull a Hail Mary, as Labour did, going from Little to Ardern. Has he already mentally checked out? Because now he's just like, well, I guess I'm just waiting for next New Year's to get my knighthood, which is the only thing I really want. But that's a bit conspiracy theory-ish, and I don't think he has that much strategic planning capability. But honestly, just the absolute lack of even being able to look at the fact, and maybe this is because deep down they deny climate change. This keeps happening. We keep having big summer storms that wreck the East Coast. This is a thing you should probably have a basic response plan for because it's probably going to happen over a summer because climate change is real.
Don't be ridiculous. We've only had two 1 in 100 year storms in the past couple of years. Like,
And they're not going to increase because if they were increasing, that might mean the climate was changing. And obviously it's
Ah!
not.
Well, this is the thing, right? There's this like disaster. That's like within those same few days, like major roads were closed in multiple locations. Like a whole bunch of towns were flooded. Like where there were thankfully no fatalities, but were immensely destructive. Like we do not have the capacity to respond to these things as a small country at this point because there's no funding for it. There's been like money's been taken out of the resiliency fund or whatever it was. I think $6 billion removed to pay for land, like help pay for landlord book balancing for the budget. These fucking claims from Willis that actually it's being mitigation is being paid through other budget lines is such bullshit. Uh, Making this big song and dance about giving 120 million for climate mitigation now when they've removed 6 billion that was there available specifically for this. Um, Taking money like away from groups like Finns, from civil defense, removing like information networks, like underfunding stuff like GeoNet, like all these things that are really important for disaster response and for our experts. And we have like some of the best people in the world here, to actually operationalize what they know and what they can do to stop this stuff from happening. Because it's not just like floods and slips, right? It's fires. We had that huge fire just a couple of months ago. Um, it's droughts. Like, what's going to happen when we get the next like really, really, really bad drought?
Oh, well, when it's a drought, suddenly there's a lot of government assistance available because it's
Oh,
farmers
it's
who
'cause
need
farmers.
it.
That's right. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And the increasing rate and severity of droughts is also not a thing because if it were, it might mean the climate was changing.
We're going to be lucky if we get sufficient like water policy right before all the reservoirs just have so much runoff flow into them because of the flooding that water becomes undrinkable in multiple towns and cities. Like, and the kind of flip side, I don't even know. The worsening of it is that the Labour Party isn't particularly speaking out about it. They're
Well,
attacking National for like some of the underfunding and stuff like that, but like they're not doing a big climate thing. To the Greens' credit, I guess, I have seen like some really good highlights of them actually being out on the ground and helping like at Marae and like in some of these disaster areas, like actually putting on gumboots, and just doing the work. Uh,
Gumboots that are not suspiciously brand new
Clean.
looking.
Yeah. And actually going talking to people in these communities. Like, I think they can do a better job with the comms on that because I don't think they're really getting any reach beyond Instagram. They're certainly not able to break through into mainstream media because, as we've said, establishment media at the moment is just fucking tied up with trying to maintain the status quo. But, already in 2026, and we've had many cases of this during this term, there have been multiple things that the government should have folded, and if there had been sufficient pressure put on the government by the media, by the gallery, they'd be gone because people are dying on their watch. Like we talked about two topics so far, and I was going to say they're not even the worst ones, but I'm going to say they're not even all the worst ones. We're probably not going to talk about health this episode, which is a fucking nightmare.
That's a whole other episode.
mm,
Yeah. We're not going to talk about like accessibility and disability policy. Like yet another one, right? And let alone, you were talking about poverty earlier, Dash. Like,
mhm.
if things are like the government kind of has secretly been talking in cabinet about anti-homeless policy that they're going to shove out. And they've been keeping it secret because they fucking know it's evil, and not even they can make that play well in public. And the media are just kind of like, okay. We're probably not going to get to like
The
military industrial
pro-slavery.
complex. We're going to talk about the modern slavery bill because that's evil. And it's a good like hot button topic, but I don't know, like if at the end of the year, this government, in any combination of National and New Zealand First or ACT, is re-elected, cities just start falling over in New Zealand. Like stuff just starts fucking breaking. Like we've talked a lot about how many ACT Party supporters and the ACT Party itself are like big fans of Milei in Argentina, right? It's basically a failed state right now, but they believe those policies are real and that they work. Um, we are on track to do that. This is what the plan is to get us to a point where, do you remember while Labour was still in government, I think during the 2023 floods. And David Seymour was making a big song and dance, backed by the media once again, about
Special
special
economic
economic
zones.
zones. You got it. Um, they want to make free ports. They want to make these areas where there is no rule of law, essentially. Business can do whatever they want. And this is why they are not backing things like the modern slavery bill.
Well, this is before we get fully into the modern slavery bill, I think what you've touched on there is right-wing economic policy, right-wing climate policy, because where, socialist losers like us see disaster, true entrepreneurs see opportunity. This is always the
Ah,
problem when um, people are talking about we need to raise awareness around climate change. It's like everyone knows climate change is happening. Is your response to that, oh shit, we need to try and like slow this down and stop this. We need to make sure that people are safe, blah blah blah. Or is your response, oh my God, this is going to make me so much fucking money? Um, and we're seeing what happens when the people in the latter camp are in charge. Like, oh,
And
roads are going to get destroyed? Awesome, I can build more roads.
and
Great.
I have to jump on that as well because the reason I think we kind of can go into a bit of a tailspin saying why can't we raise awareness about climate change is that people, as you say, people know about climate change, but they've also had umpteen years of being told, but there's nothing we can really do about it. It's such
Hmm.
a big problem. We're such a small country, da 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 da. And that is one reason why, and this is my plea specifically to the Green Party, because Labour clearly doesn't want to actually do this, have some really clear, concrete, deliverable, like brain grabbing policies about
Yep.
climate. Because as much as I think it's great for people to point out how National stripped out the climate resilience funding that was set up, that wasn't a cool policy, guys. It was a necessary and important policy that obviously would have done a lot of good right now, but it's not the kind of thing that people can go, that's going to make a difference
Yep.
immediately to my life and my material conditions and my community's well-being in times of disaster. And don't start me on the emissions trading scheme. We need some climate policies, and we need policies in every area which are not, we're going to do a scheme to invest a fund to develop a thing. You need to say the equivalent of free dental, the equivalent
Yep.
of guaranteed minimum income, great green policies from the last election. It's got to be tangible to people. And
We
that's difficult for, climate science because it's kind of huge and everywhere. But it can be done because you just need one or two things in the package that make the good headlines and that make David Seymour go, what do you mean we're going to make people's lives better? Which will immediately win people to your cause.
well,
Yeah.
this is the big one which I've been
Agitation.
pushing for like since before 2023, even before that election. I was like, this is how Labour could win the election. Um, is just fund firefighters and emergency services. Like, actually give them some fucking money. Fund civil defense. Like, start like programs to get people trained up. It has an immediate impact on people's well-being in their communities. Like, start funding like community resiliency, right? You can actually do that. You can actually pour money into that, and it's
Hmm.
going to boost the economy, not only in like your big cities where you might need more firefighting, for example, but in the smaller rural towns where they often don't have as much access to these things. Someone has to come from the next town over. Just send the money, send it all to
Yeah.
them.
The,
Nearly an hour in, and I'm finally going to mention Zoran Mamdani. The video he did for the oncoming storm that was going to hit New York City, where he's in the freaking depot and he's talking about how, hey guys, we need you to be patient because mail services might be, oh no, not mail services, rubbish collection might be a little delayed because what they do is they strap snow plows to the rubbish trucks. And I'm like, that is the most amazing tangible, real, engaging example of, hey, here's how this public service is actually able to deploy in multiple ways to help you in a time of crisis. And being able to do something at the same time as we've got New Zealand Post closing more branches because, hey, let's run our postal service like a failing business instead of an actual public good. Imagine a government coming in on a promise of we are going to fund all of these public services and we are going to get them working together so that when anything like this happens, when something like the Mount Maunganui slip, in which some people did tragically pass away, happens, we immediately have boots on ground, machinery in action, people working together to deliver results. And does it cost you money when there's not a disaster? Yeah, and we're going to tax the shit out of the Mowbray family specifically to pay for all of it because no one likes them either. But having that actual kind of real idea of what a government could deliver for people in these kinds of crises that isn't just, I'm going to show up with some fucking KFC and post some content to my social media pages, I think would be really useful in an election year. Thanks, opposition parties. Please get on it.
Yeah. I think just something like we are going to hire 10,000 people to clean the rivers and respond to climate disasters. Something like that. It'd be cheaper than $3 billion in tax cuts. And it would do more public good.
And this is the thing, like, hey, you want some fucking jobs? And meanwhile you got Shane Jones and whoever else out here saying like, oh, we're gonna open up Schedule 4 land, conservation land, for mining, which who the fuck knows what that's gonna do? And give mining to no, you're not. Where's the money gonna go? Are you fucking kidding me?
But Shane Jones's mates. That's where
that's right. Go. Not even his mates, just some guys.
But if you're looking across the major, I guess political parties, that's the best. If you're someone who's unemployed and you're like, where are the jobs going to come from? New Zealand First is the only party that's saying like, we're doing this to make jobs.
And they're lying.
And nobody is asking them, are they though?
Yeah, no one's being critical about it, but no other party is saying, we are going to do this thing which will make more jobs. It's always like Labour said, we're going to make more jobs. How?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Greens have said, we've got green jobs. What green jobs? Fucking tell us.
They're making jobs for consultants. Let's be real.
Nice. Hey, do you want an independent review? Because Labour's got some.
A working group, another working group for the same 5 people who ran all the other working groups that they then never actually did anything with the recommendations of because Labour doesn't know how working groups are meant to work.
But yeah,
I'm going to give some props here to missed, tragic, lost to Parliament, James Shaw.
Don't do it. Don't do it, Stephanie. Not on this podcast.
Mitch, cut it.
Mitch, you leave this in. Because I remember, and this is going way back to when I worked at the EPMU, and James Shaw came in and talked to the EPMU conference, which is always, a bit of there were the EPMU members who loved the Green Party, and then there were all of the West Coast mining delegates who did not. And he won a lot of people over by literally coming in and saying, yeah, when I say just transition, that means that we need to figure out a way to keep your communities together and to get you guys jobs that are meaningful. And that does not mean we close all the mines and everyone retrains as a barista for the tourism industry. And the guys went, oh, okay. So you do understand that the way this is often talked about in green and progressive circles is really minimizing and erasing of the reality of being in a West Coast mining town. I mean, not so much a thing now because, wow, it turns out that also trying to run our mining industry very terribly as a state-owned enterprise also didn't work out well for communities. Who would have thought it? But that kind of acknowledging to people that you're not coming in with all the answers and that the answers can't just be glib, oh, well, there will be jobs. What jobs? What jobs are my kids going to do? How are my kids going to have jobs that are here? How are my kids going to be able to afford a house or to settle down or to have kids themselves, etc.? And God, it just doesn't feel like it should be that hard, except you have to have actual policies that will deliver actual things, not just an investigation to do a working group to develop options to invest in a fund that will provide blah.
And I think something like Dash mentioned, hire 10,000 people to clean up our rivers. Like that's a real thing. Like that would have a significant impact on our natural environment. And it is like good work, right? So another like X thousand to plant trees, right? Like there aren't 20-year pine crops, um, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of cool shit that we can get people to do for money.
Build houses.
What? Just really frustrating that like the really necessary policies, and I back a lot of like there's heaps of good green policies, like, but they're not still publicly tied to people's realities, and they're not meeting people at um the point that they are at on their journey, right? Like, which, as you've said, Stephanie, is yeah, but how do I feed my kids, right? Like, how do my kids grow up here in the town where we've lived for a couple of generations, right? Like, how do they have kids?
But I will also say, because I also haven't ripped on Chris Hipkins yet this episode, unless I have, I've forgotten. When the Greens do have good policies that offer tangible things and solutions, everyone immediately runs to Chris Hipkins, who goes, "Oh, well, no, no, we wouldn't be doing that. No, I'm ruling that out." Can you just stop, Chris? Chris Hipkins needs to stop calling out the Greens and Te Pāti Māori unless he's also going to bring the same energy to the ACT Party, David Seymour, Brooke Van Velden saying people should be starving, desperate, and working on slave fishing ships. And unless he's going to call out Winston Peters for spreading anti-Semitic crap about the World Health Organization, like, if that's going to be okay, and if you're not going to have anything to say about that, just tell us that you want Winston Peters as your deputy prime minister. Be honest with the people of New Zealand and stop trying to win people's progressive votes when you're going to deliver a absolute Christopher Luxon, but I have more hair government. The end.
The end. I mean, that's about it, right? Like, and I mean, another really good clue that the media is fucked now. You dropped a couple of things there around what ACT and New Zealand First are doing. Winston Peters doing like an overt anti-Semitism in the media and like to the public, and then media putting it in quotes. The term he used was globalists, about the World Health Organization, using it as the headline, and then not explaining that he was being a Nazi. Like, that is how far gone New Zealand's establishment media is now. Oh, but we're just quoting him. Oh, we just have to quote him. That's just reporting.
And I said on Blue Sky to put that article together, and sure, they also quoted Phil Goff in a later article and they quoted somebody else, but to not have any just neutral statement of fact. What is the World Health Organization? When was it founded and what is its mandate? So when Winston Peters says, they've forgotten their original mandate, you ask him, and how have they done that, Winston? Can you please give 3 examples? And if he can't, that's the story. Not hard.
They're so cooked now, eh? They're so like in the bag for not just a repeat national government, but for fascism, for like whatever it is that New Zealand First and ACT want to do to this fucking country. It's so blatant at this point, and the way in which they are just using fascist rhetoric in their headlines now, to an extent, I don't think, it's been pretty coded a lot of the time, and even sometimes when it's been less coded. I remember Duncan Garner talking, like doing the anti-immigrant stuff. A lot of the rest of the media were like, "Oh, not a good look, mate." But now it's just like, "Oh, we're just reporting what was said, mate." Oh, no, it's just our job to like stenograph for these
We
these
don't tell
politicians.
people what to think. We just present both sides of the issue. And if the issue also has a factual side, we will simply not acknowledge
And
it.
it's actually the audience's fault for not reading further.
They don't want to click on that stuff, which I know, again, we've talked about this a lot. I beg the gallery to remember, and again, I'm quoting myself on Blue Sky, how quickly cynical, lefty, awful people on Twitter and Blue Sky turned around on Tova O'Brien, and she became our hero just by publishing one shot, zooming in on Dr. Ashley Bloomfield's sad face as David Clark threw him under the bus for something that happened during the first big COVID wave, because I'm not going to say during COVID because it's still going on. But And then the decimation of Todd Muller when Todd Muller and Nikki Kay tried to say Paul Goldsmith is Maori, like that's what the people want, and you could get that every night by simply going to any Luxon or Seymour press conference specifically, but also any of them really, and just as soon as they make an assertion, you say, "But is that true? Is that true, Minister? Can you provide us information on that?" And then if they're like, "Oh, yes, well, the ministry has the documents," you go, "Cool. And will you release those proactively so we don't have to go through the OIA?" And you say it to their face and you keep asking that until you get a clear answer, or more likely, they lose their temper and storm off. And that's great clickbait right
Wow.
there.
That would get you clicks. That would
Wow.
get you an audience. Oh my goodness. And that's just for the ones which aren't in the public sphere already, because so much of this you can just click the website and then you'll know that they're lying to you because the information's already in the public. And you can say, "Is that true?" And they say, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah. These documents." You say, "But I've got that document right here and it says something different."
We should be journalists or something.
Wow.
Someone pay us to be journalists.
Well, we actually just don't know how to do the job properly because what you're meant to do is be really objective. Uh, so modern slavery, a a situation so bad that Labour and National are creating a mini grand coalition. Keep an eye on that coming into November to get this bill as a government bill, despite coalition partners not supporting it. Um, like, I don't know. I don't want slavery to exist in the modern era. Personally, I would like there to be consequences for slavery in this country. Um, Act Act don't want us to to take action on that, apparently. To the extent that they will not or they would not um, help National pass this bill and have forced National work with Labour to get it across the line.
You know what's weird to me about this is I have not seen in the coverage, and maybe I've missed it, but I've not seen in the coverage as prominently as it should be the fact that less than 4 years ago, Christopher Luxon said this is the issue he'd march in the streets over. Like, because that's become one of the questions we ask party leaders now.
Sorry.
He said he would march in the streets to stop modern slavery. And no one has brought this up. It's just turned into, look at these two great MPs. I'm sorry, I can't remember who the national MP is, but the Labour MP is Camilla Bellich, Anya Camilla. Great work, Camilla. And also that guy, whose name I will not remember. But how are we not being like, so Luxon, like,
You gonna march, mate?
how does he not claim some credit for this? This is meant to be his thing.
It's also funny because would this be a more concrete legislative change towards achieving his March in the Streets goal than just a Ardern for her goal of ending child poverty in New Zealand?
Well, we can't talk about that. That might imply that Jacinda Ardern wasted a historic majority in Parliament.
Historic majority with the lowest historical interest rates and maximum borrowing power.
Oh my God, Bernard Hickey's on the pod?
Is that Bernard Hickey's music?
It's just like, how do you? And what's really funny is that media have asked David Seymour, like, "Why aren't you supporting this?" And then just put him up on a video, like giving his reasons why he's not supporting it, and it's all bullshit. Like, and there's no like real criticism. Like, it should be, "Hey, so David Seymour, you support slavery?" Like, because that is essentially what this is by not supporting this bill. It's not even like it introduces like some really big fines. And this is, I think, the probably more important step. It introduces liability for business owners that are found to be, supporting modern slavery. And then so they can't just like fucking go, "Oh, didn't know, mate, sorry." And then give some more like reporting and punitive functions to organizations or institutions to try and stop modern slavery. And David Seymour's like, "Nah, because slavery is just a business, mate, and we believe in the rights of the business owner. So if people want to be slaves, that'd be taking away their human rights."
We think that workers have dignity and autonomy, and that's why we expect them to just like bootstraps themselves out of slavery, and they should just negotiate one-on-one with their employer. That's how the master slave relationship works. Whoops, did I say master slave relationship? I meant employer employee. No, I meant shell company and independent contractor. It's just it's staggering to me how this isn't just what everyone is chasing David Seymour around. David, why do you love slavery? Why do you love slavery? And then when he comes back with some waffle, you go, but you're not supporting a bill about slavery, which is exactly what they would do to Labour or the Greens
Yeah.
or to Party Māori if National or ACT or New Zealand First had a bill that had a equally inflammatory, though probably dishonestly used word in the title. They'd be saying, why don't you love freedom? If ACT put in a freedom of speech bill that was specifically about the rights of Nazis to march in our streets, and the Greens said, no, we're not for this, it would be daily. Greens don't
Or
support
freedom of
freedom of
speech,
speech.
yeah.
Greens hate freedom. But in this case, it's just like, oh, yeah, so, we're getting a bit of a grand coalition to stop modern slavery, and ACT just won't support it.
Yeah.
No,
Hmm.
nothing more to see here. Make
Pretty
Brooke Van
nasty.
Velden cry. That's all I'm asking of you, Gallery. I believe you can do it.
They've done it before.
It's pretty horrific, eh? And again, like but it comes back to the I'm going to say intentional ineffectiveness and like propaganda role that establishment media has decided to play here and decided to play for capital um, over the last more intensely over the last six years, we'll say, through that majority Labour government up into 2023 and accelerating since 2023 with this national coalition government. Um, they're just in the bag for the far right, like in most ways that matter. And we like I always go, oh, but there are some journalists, right? There are some people doing some good stories. Yeah, okay, whatever, man. Um, absolutely meaningless at this point because the only people reading those stories are people who are going to find them now. Because oh, by and large, like when a when a big thing happens, like when there's something which at New Zealand First or National can be boosted for, every single website, so let's say Stuff, One News, New Zealand Herald, and RNZ is actually becoming more and more egregious on this as well, will have effectively the same story as their top story, which will be like Luxon eats Labour's lunch and delivers for workers. Um, and I just don't think that we should underestimate the full press media line towing that effect has for the electorate and for their audiences. People complain, oh, people are voting against their interests. They literally don't know. Like, oh, they should do more research, blah, blah, blah. How? Like, people are applying for like 300 jobs like a month kind of thing. Like, they are, or they're working two jobs, you know? They're working multiple part-time roles to like feed their kids or just pay the rent or like try and have enough to pay their power bill. And you've got this whole bunch of commentators still, often Labour affiliates who are like, oh, why aren't the voters, why are they all voting for New Zealand First? Well, you're not communicating to them effectively, and you haven't yet understood that the media apparatus as it exists in this country is specifically on the side of New Zealand First at this point, on the side of like increasing bigotry, increasing like nationalism and increasing fascism in the way that it spins this stuff. And so, as Dash said earlier, like when Shane Jones comes in and says, we're going to give jobs, we're going to give people mining jobs, extractive jobs, and that's the only thing being said, uh, people see that and they're like, oh, well, that's where my jobs are coming from. I guess New Zealand First are going up in the polls. And then people turn around and say, oh, why are people voting for New Zealand First? Say it must all be racist bigots. And yes, some of them are, or some of them don't care. But also, some of them just don't fucking know. And
It's the vibes. It's the vibes and it's the headlines. And journos are always quick to say, oh, but the headline's written by a different person. The story actually covered this. Yeah, but people don't have time. And people don't have, I don't, how do I say this? People are not in a full-time critical thinking mode the way the nerds who produce and listen to this podcast do. People just go, I saw a headline that said there's lots of jobs, or I saw there's a headline that they're going to fix education, or I saw there's a headline that health is spending a lot of money on things. And why would they assume that the media is lying to them or missing critical information? Why would an ordinary person assume that the headline isn't telling them effectively the full story? Because you guys have pivoted to clickbait, so you need to be like, ooh, here's a mystery. Please click and get all of the goddamn taboola ads stuck at the bottom of our articles. And yeah, then people end up with these weird, inaccurate perceptions of our politics and of how the world
mhm.
works. I mean, there's the whole other rant that we don't have time for today about how Winston Peters and New Zealand First have gamed the biscuit tin this term, and they get a headline every single time. And I know that there are people out there who think that we've banned trans people from bathrooms, or who think that we've whatever other bloody things they've done. There's so many that they've been chopping and changing because every time they'd get a headline, and the headline is not clear. New Zealand First proposes bill that will go nowhere as political stunt. And that is ultimately a
Look
failure
how
of
effective
media. And
they are.
as much as we can rag on Labour and the Greens messaging as well, there is a level to which, even if the messaging was perfect, is the media going to pick it up?
Well, this is the thing. I
And
haven't.
if they're not, develop new channels, guys. Come on, got to pivot. The cheese moved.
This is the thing, right? I haven't seen any like in any establishment media images of the Greens with their gumboots on out there helping communities, right? I've seen it through the social media channels and that's it. But that comes down to where people are looking. And we know that trust is created in mainstream media institutions, but there's still like a fairly significant group of people who have that lagging trust, at least that they're telling them some kind of truth, that they're not outright lying to them, but they are outright lying to them. And then the people who are losing trust, where do they go? They go to social media for their news. And then the media institutions and certain other groups, political or NGOs, complain about, oh, but the real big problem is Facebook disinformation. No, it's not. Like that is a serious problem at this point with the way that tech billionaires are in the bag for fascism. But they're being driven there by mainstream media who are also disseminating the same disinformation at a more authoritative level because people still have that baseline trust for journalism, which shouldn't exist anymore.
Well, part of the dilemma is that a reason a lot of the disinformation and AI slop out there works is because it is mimicking traditional media
Whoops.
models that people still believe in. And
Oops.
people don't know how many news channels or how many journalists are out there. They just see a video that's got like a scrolling chyron and they go, well, this must come from a news channel, so it's authoritative, so I share it. And that's why there's such a, frankly, moral duty on media to be better and be authoritative so people are able to spot the difference between the AI slop disinformation and the actual journalism. And I get that it's hard because capitalism, but you know what? Stop boosting the system
I
that's
don't think it's
destroying you
I don't think it's
guys.
even hard anymore. Like if they went like proper journalistic again, people would flood to it because they're sick of like weird shit. Like, oh, but people are clicking on these AI slop videos, so we have to be AI slop too. That's just how it
Also, people
works.
aren't.
I can't,
Bots are clicking on them.
this is
Facebook's
the
lying
thing,
to you
right?
about your
It's
metrics. Come on,
bullshit.
guys.
Like they got you once with the pivot to video. Like don't let them get you again. But anyway, um, another really great example of that. Hey, here's some actual good clickbait you could have used, and they haven't. In this, like, it seems specifically to protect the ACT Party and David Seymour. Is I haven't seen a single news item in any establishment media so far of the video clip of David Seymour in Parliament 2 days ago. First up, believing that wholemeal bread is cheaper than white bread, in response to questioning from Jenny Anderson about the increase in price in food. He says people should eat wholemeal bread instead of white bread if they want to buy bread more cheaply. Jenny Anderson says wholemeal's more expensive, and he says, well, people should economize with how they eat.
Just
Uh,
less bread. Eat less bread.
Eat
Eat
less
less bread.
food is the
Drink less
answer for New
milk.
Zealanders who can't
Uh,
afford food. Eat less.
it's
Insane.
so it's just so absolutely offensive to me because that's the kind of thing that should see someone run out of parliament. Like if you are saying that it is acceptable for people to be nickel and diming the cost of a slice of bread and oh maybe the kids only get a quarter of a slice of bread for their sandwiches and their lunch boxes, on top of every other piece of evidence we've seen that David Seymour wants people to go hungry and be desperate, like school lunches, hello, to not be chasing him through the halls of Parliament going, David Seymour, how much does milk cost? You know how much milk costs? Do you have any idea what the cost of groceries is? And, you know, if any journalists are listening and need a tip, go talk to Otago University because they've got this really long running freaking survey of how much food costs in this country. It's not hard. But to have that just become another, haha, silly David Seymour, let's now move on and not interrogate any further how this man is trying to create a perception, which is part of a long running program of the right to downplay poverty in this country, to say that people need to economize on bread.
I mean,
Like,
people have had historically, people have been more than just run out of parliament for saying things like that.
it's come on, guys, just ah. I'm wordless with frustration that we are in the ACT Party, doesn't care about health and safety, doesn't care about pay equity, doesn't care about kids' school lunches being edible, doesn't care about modern slavery, and thinks you need to economize on bread. And we don't have every headline 10 times David Seymour acted like Marie freaking Antoinette.
It's
How out of touch is the ACT Party? We asked all of their MPs how much milk costs, and here the answers will surprise you. Lucille Bluth, it's wholemeal bread. What can it cost? $1? Come on.
it's horrific. And yeah, I mean, again, we've been saying for years now, like the opposition parties or like the groups around them, the unions, yada yada yada, need to have established um different information streams. They haven't. At least come up with more creative ways to force stuff into the media. Like get aggressive. You have to become full antagonists now. You have to be doing crazy shit. Like
Do
go
some
like
stunts.
1980s Saatchi or something. Like do some really weird stuff. PS2 release trailers, that kind of shit. Like just get really weird with it.
I don't even think it's that. And I think, again, I've mentioned Zoran. I haven't mentioned Zach. It's the two Z's. My politics is ZZ top. I would like Zoran and Zach Polanski to top me. Been saving that joke for a year. You even just going on to like Piers Morgan's show, as Zach Polanski did, and saying, yes, women can have penises. There you go. There's your freaking headline. Just be the politician who'll say things up front. And even if some people go, oh, I'm a bit perplexed by that, at least they've heard you. And at least all of the people they then rant about at work around the water cooler, did you hear this ridiculous thing they said? Some of those people are going to go, oh, actually, that's not actually the worst idea. Just be bold.
Yeah.
Do the shock value, do some stunts, have some tangible policies to throw in on the back of the stunts.
Yeah.
We can do it. And also, Chris Hipkins, either admit you want Winston Peters to be your deputy prime minister or resign.
That's it. Skydive into Parliament. I don't know. Like, you know, like go do some crazy stuff. Like you actually have to now. You're required to as part of the comms apparatus because no one has set up this alternative information pipeline except very specifically for the stands of these parties. Like even I, and you know, I don't stand any party, but I am deep in this stuff, right? I am a freak for New Zealand politics. I have to go searching stuff on Instagram or TikTok to find stuff for the Greens, or even for Te Pāti Māori, right, as well. Like I actually don't see anything come up naturally for Labour. Even if I'm trying to search for it, sometimes it is difficult to do, which is fine by me. But like, this is what I'm saying. Like, the algorithm is not helping you either. Like you might be getting a lot of clicks and a lot of views, and a lot of reactions from your already captured uh, fan base. I guess I'm going to say if we're just talking social media, these aren't necessarily even voters. Keep that in mind. But you're not going to win like that. And especially in an environment where National has openly admitted that they're trying to suppress votes.
Mhm.
Like, you need to get people signed up. You need to be growing the vote share. You are going to lose unless you do this. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you're able to communicate directly to the electorate and the parts of the electorate in particular that aren't already in the bag for you.
Yep.
It is really simple stuff.
It all builds on itself too, because if you start doing the stunts and if you start holding the events in community and you get people turning up, then eventually the mainstream media have to cover it because otherwise it becomes a bit too obvious that they're not doing their jobs.
And also, like, I'll say this about a lot of mainstream reporters. They also want to be part of it. They're pick me. All of them are pick me. Like if you're the cool kids doing cool shit, they want to be there just so that they can say they were there.
Mhm. And that's honestly, we've said this before, it's one of David Seymour's secrets. I mean, I also look down on any journalist who's like, oh, he's good
He's
to
so
have a yarn
friendly.
with. He can't be good to have a yarn with. He's a clearly obnoxious human being. You need better social intelligence. But yeah, you got to be having the yarns. You got to be the mates. You got to be getting the stuff out of departments and leaking the OIAs to them so that they feel like they've got a scoop. Come on, it's all stuff that I know that our people, progressives, opposition parties, there are people who know how to do it. And honestly, if the leader of your party is called Chris and isn't letting you do it, just do it anyway. It's fine. Saving the country from fascism is more important.
Get the reporter and a ride along with you when you skydive into Parliament. Look at that.
Strap the
Incredible.
reporter to you
Yeah.
as you skydive into
Fantastic.
Parliament.
Fantastic. And
with a James Bond-esque parachute that says something like
And the news
climate
will-
action now or end modern slavery.
the headlines will be even better if the parachute doesn't open.
Okay,
So,
we're going
but-
too far.
No, I'm not saying. No, Stephanie. I'm not saying don't intentionally open the parachute.
I'm just saying
that's ridiculous. Like
This
but-
podcast has a cursed monkey's paw
Oh,
heritage.
right. I know. I've touched
We
the
don't
way.
manifest things, Kyle.
What I'm saying is the risks are worth it. The risks are worth it. Even if something goes wrong, you're still hitting the headlines. That's fine. Any final things? Judith Collins retired from politics. No one cares. I don't give a fuck. She's evil. She's going to the Law Commission, which is maybe worse.
Yeah, the number of people who are like, yay, and it's like, she's going to the Law Commission. Oh, okay. No, not oh, okay. The Law Commission is how we got things like freaking abortion law reform, guys.
Evil.
It just we need the Law Commission to be driving actual sensible reflections and modernizations of our legislation. And
but Judith Collins is a liberal. No, she's a fascist.
No, with any luck, she'll be too busy going to China to plug her husband's businesses, and ripping
she's-
swamp coalty out of the
He's
ground.
bringing Kirsty Noam here to institute ICE in New Zealand. Another thing which media just somehow have ignored.
Can we get an ICC warrant for Kristi Noem? Because I'd citizens arrest that.
Absolutely. Like, I still can't believe that media haven't just been like, hey, so Kirsty Noem's doing the stuff, like her agents have been murdering people in the streets, Judith Collins. You have photos of you with her calling her your friend up on your Facebook. What do you think of that?
Yeah. Easy story, guys. Easy story.
Really? Clicks. All right, I think that's it for today.
I've already lost Pmax. Pmax was like, I'm done with you guys.
Dash was like, hey, I'm out of here, and we just quit the call.
I think
So
you
we
wanted
didn't
to
get to say
flight,
goodbye.
Kyle, so he didn't want to interrupt.
We didn't even want to say. He didn't even say goodbye. He should have interrupted to do that. But that's been the first current events episode for 1 of 200 in 2026. It's going to be a year coming into the election. We will be here with rage and lunacy in the weeks to come as we head towards November 7th for the election. Thank you so much for joining me, Stephanie.
That's all good. Been a little frenetic, a little chaotic. Mitch is going to have fun with the edit, but I think that's probably setting the scene appropriately for the year ahead. My final words to everyone is please check you're enrolled. If you're Maori, check you are on the role you want to be on, because apparently some people aren't. and get all of your mates, your friends and whānau to vote too. And look forward to me having a lot of yelling into the microphone about how tactical voting works under MMP or doesn't work under MMP in the months to come.
Fantastic. And thank you, Dash, for joining us as well. Oh, wait, you're not here.
Dash!
If you've enjoyed this, share, like, subscribe, get us rolling again. We are an alternative information stream. So if you're an MP listening to this and you want some product placement of your political party, get in touch with us.
Come on the pod.
Come on the pod and just rant for an hour. Just go absolutely wild. We don't care.
And Mitch will make you sound good.
Maybe.
Mitch
We'll see
is
it.
only
No,
human.
We will make you sound good. We're not here to do gotchas. We're here so you can lose your minds. Yeah, thank you for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next week.
Hakite.
If artificers are, then I'm living a pointless life, but I'm learning all your lessons. Fucking politics, there's no distinction. The road's upon now. It's paid with good intentions, and I'll admit that I'm at a loss for what to say when they quote this as a cost we ought to stay. I live amongst the people every day in this vindictive, forgetful fucking rain. It feels like we're on the road to hell.